Welcome to the Hang Time Podcast. I'm your host, Sekou Smith, here in the Orlando bubble. NBA playoff action coming at us fast and furious. I'm trying to figure out what in the world we saw last night in Game 7 of the conference semifinals. One of the favorites to win it all went down in epic fashion. And joining us today to talk about it is Detroit's finest, one of my all-time favorite players and people, Chris Webber of TNT. Webb, I don't know what it looked like from where you were sitting, but from courtside, that was one of the most stunning flameouts I've seen of a contender in all my years watching basketball. When you wake up and think about what the Clippers did last night, man, where do you put that in terms of the context of how their season was supposed to go and how it finished?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me on, man. I check out your podcast all the time when I'm working out. Well, I can't even say working out when I'm faking like I'm working out. Time it up, but man, I couldn't believe it. I mean, this game is humbling, man. Not only the players, but I mean, to reporters, analysts. You know, I'm not one of those guys that you know kind of don't say when they're wrong. And I had the Clippers since the very announcement to win it all. I thought that the consistency on the defensive end every night would give them an advantage. Now, I do think maybe the bubble changed that. Maybe it didn't. I call the bubble the great equalizer because I think, without the crowd, without that tangible momentum, sometimes it's different when you have that. But so what? This is what is going on now. But I think what we saw was that the Clippers don't have a shot blocker. And the defense on the perimeter got exposed. I mean, players are so good in this game. And so, man, I was just surprised. When they got to 18, I'm not even going to lie to you. I left and went to the other room. I was just disgusted watching the game.
Listen, Webb, sitting there, I was sitting right on the floor, too, which this is one of the beauties of the bubble is that we get to sit close to the floor again like we did years ago as media, And Paul George put a three up from the corner that went off the side of the backboard.
I saw that.
And I looked around and thought to myself, is this for real? And then late in the game, Jokic is at the top of the key. He throws a pass from his down by his waist up over his back, no look. I was like, they're not just beating the Clippers. They were clowning them by the end of that game.
I mean, they were. And this is the thing, too. They hit a lot of threes, but they clowned them with their style of play. And meaning that was a wonderful pass by Jokic. I'm not taking anything from that. But the only reason why he could do that is because his man cut so hard.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So the cutting is there. They cut with what I call integrity. Like no matter if you get the rock or not, every time you cut the same. And a lot of teams won't do that. That's why you don't see as much cutting because it's tough to cut and to make a cut to get open. And if you don't touch it, to do it 3 times in a row, 4 times in a row. And so the way that they play, you have to give Grant a lot of credit. I mean, he's hitting threes, not as consistent as he's going to, but he's moved his game up a lot. But defensively, and before the game, I told someone, they said, what do you feel? I said, well, I picked the Clippers to win it all, but I'm scared they won't get by tonight. But an 18 point, come on, man. That was just a beatdown. I'm really shocked by that.
Yeah. Everybody's going to pick the Clippers apart today. There'll be rationalizations for why it didn't happen or blame. To me, there's so much to spread around in terms of responsibility. But the one thing I keep coming back to is if Paul George and Kawhi Leonard are going to be held in the esteem and the regard that they want to be as players, then don't they have to own that? Don't players own those kinds of performances? You combine for 24 points in a Game 7 in a series you've been up 3-1. That's got to fall on the guys out there on the floor, doesn't it?
I mean, if LeBron and AD do that, we're definitely going to pick that apart. I think that I think it's spread, evenly, but I would go 4 different ways. One with the head coach. Mm-hmm. We all know Doc's a great coach and he has a championship, but I think he's 6 and 7. I'm not sure, but I know he doesn't have a great record in Game 7s and closeout games. If you look, the Clippers' history and other things when he had Paul. And so, I think there's going to have to be some evaluation there. Hopefully not fine, but some evaluation there. Then I think you have to go to Kawhi. Second, I think that now the regular season matters. I think the argument of oh, he can just play and he just wants to win in the postseason. That's cool. But now that you've had a chance to do it, the greatness of LeBron is that he plays those games. Not always 82. I think he's only done it one time. But to be that consistent all season long with the same rigors and come in and prove it in the playoffs, I think you got to go to Paul George, who, man, and he plays so hard defensively and one of the smoothest players on the court. But, man, again, I was disappointed in Denver in the past. I had higher expectations for Denver 2 years ago. And so they've always, in my mind, been had to prove me wrong. And they've definitely done that. But this is who I thought Denver could be a long time because they have one of the deepest teams. And then I think lastly, I think Lou Williams and Montrezl Harrell. I know the player was upset because I said that it should be easier for Harrell to get back into a rhythm because his skill, his motor and his heart and soul, and some people got mad at that, but that's what it is. And so I expect more of him in these type of situations, especially in those last games. Lou, to me, is the best six man ever. So I think he has to take a lot of that blame too.
Yeah, as much as you're going to focus on the Clippers too. I mean, this Nuggets team, you watch a group kind of develop over the years, and you mentioned having higher expectations for them a couple of years ago when I think they were still on the horizon. Last year, I had them in the playoffs in that series against Portland when they lost a deciding game on their home floor to go to the Western Conference Finals. Is there something to be said for the incremental climb that they've been on, missing out on the playoffs on the last game of the season, a few years ago, then making a run, but not quite getting there this year, having a breakthrough? Isn't that traditionally the way we've seen it, where a team has to go through some of that adversity and hard times to get to this next point?
Yeah, that's what I was about to say, Sekou. I was about to say, the game. That's how it's traditionally been, except when, super teams. And so when Kawhi, Paul George traded, and, I'm thinking, okay, this super team could do it. But no, this is the traditional climb, the way that it should be. And, it's not a surprise with a coach's son and Coach Malone. If you saw the teams that he coached, whether Sacramento or other places, his players are some of the most loyal to him. And, when they talk to you, off the record, they're really loyal to him. So, yeah, it is a story. And I think that's what's missing, whether in college sports or NBA or, sometimes even, in football, is that the fact that you can't become emotionally attached to the growth of someone else's team in another city. And when I fell in love with Denver was when they lost to Minnesota, whatever year that was.
Yeah, 3 years ago, last night of the season, yeah.
Okay, because Jokic, did you see the game that he had then? And I can tell a lot about guys in a loss. Like, everybody's going to chop the Clippers up because of their demeanor in the loss. Well, I could tell a lot about a team that fights to the end. And in that game, and then again, when Murray this year, I love when players put the onus on himself and he says, well, I had a bad playoff last year. And so, a guy's been thinking about that enough to say it comfortably to address it. And so, you definitely, want to root for them.
To me, Webb, this whole bubble experience has really exposed kind of, you hear these teams talking about, we just hooping, like the Heat talk about that. We just hoopers, we're going out there and hoop. The Celtics kind of on that same vibe. I wrote it last week that the fear factor down here seems to have vanished. Like, nobody seems scared of anybody else. No team walks into that home arena when you're the road team feeling intimidated by the crowd. I mean, this is such a pure competitive environment, playing on these foreign courts and with no crowd like you're used to. I'm wondering if you're looking at these Final Four teams and saying to yourself, I think this is what might happen, but anything could happen based on the makeup of these four teams that are left.
This is the great equalizer. I'll keep saying it over and over. One of the things I loved seeing the other day was watching the Celtics game and seeing Jason Tatum's son on the side playing a video game. Because that's what basketball is. You have a son, it is, taking him to the game, the other kids run. To me, that's the best feeling of basketball because that's how everybody in that room grew up. Everybody in that room grew up with their parents on the side, just close family, not 50 people. It's not like the games, 50 people, entourage. No, just the family. And it's a great equalizer because of this, if we're really honest. The refereeing has been a little bit better. because referees are human. So if they're getting booed by 20,000 people, just like it will affect the shot, it affects calls. It's less technicals and less, because of all of that energy. And I'm giving Portland all the credit in the world. But, we don't take travel into account. Travel it can be tough and probably tougher than anything else. That wake up in the morning, having to do media when you just got in town and, you twisted your ankle and now swelling comes into effect. So the rehabilitation is quicker, the same exact rims, and you don't have to deal with your media as much. So no one had to go home and say, oh man, we're 2-0. Like no one, how in traditional ball we would say the game doesn't start till somebody wins on the opponent's court. Well, that never had to happen here. It's never that pressure. The game sevens weren't the same. They are. Game six weren't the same because we have to give NBA teams, production, and fans a lot of credit. I mean, if anything, fans should realize how important they are because they really do have something to do with the field goal kicker missing the shot or a player missing a shot, even though we saw shots off the side of the backboard. I mean, they do it themselves. But, so, yeah, it's the great equalizer. And I wouldn't, be surprised if Miami won it all. I said it before, and I'm just going to say it again. Just because it's no more fear factor. It's no more pomp and circumstances. It's just put on the jersey, shirts and skin, and let's rock.
Chris, if you look at this field, this Final Four, how do you handicap it? Where do you find a favorite amongst these four teams that are still playing?
Well, I think LeBron has to be a favorite anytime you have a player and a coach like him on the floor, just his experience and, he's championship or bust. But I do think that, just to put it on him, as great as he is a lot because it is a team game. And you can just ask the Miami Heat that or the Celtics that or any other team or even Denver. How I would handicap it is that it's, the Lakers in the field, but the field is going to have a lot to say about this. So I really wouldn't be surprised if anything happened because, again, you're not traveling to Staples Centers and you don't see Kobe's jersey next to Magic's up and next to Jerry West. It's none of the pomp and circumstances, just straight up hooping in the gym, and it's the essence. And I've seen a lot of ball in gyms like that. So Lakers in the field, but you never know.
Marcus Morris said something interesting after the game last night when I was talking to him. And he was just saying that having experienced it, he said that he will have the utmost respect for whoever wins this championship because of the circumstance, because of the shutdown. Then you have to come down here to the bubble and completely restart a season after what's longer than a normal offseason. That 4-month break is longer than you would normally get in terms of a break in between seasons. Does this strike you as one of those rare moments in this sport when the asterisk is actually going to be a good thing as opposed to a bad thing for the champion?
I think, yeah, and at the least it'll be debatable. I think that some that may not give it the respect are going to say it's no travel. And if it's no travel as a player, you should be able to play your best at any time. They're going to say, if you're a rookie and you never made it to the playoffs before, then you don't get it at all. You still haven't been to the playoffs. So I'm going to say the pressure with the crowd there and, it's not the same. So that's one thought. But having been in that bubble, the mental toughness, I think, the team aspect of it, and this is why I really mean it's a team game, and as far as Lakers in the field, the benches have to give so much more energy. It's not looked at as just silly antics anymore. It's looked at as, okay, let me pump you up, and we have to manufacture our own energy. And so, but it is, to me, after being there, one of the toughest situations that I've seen because just the mental, I just don't know how these guys get any mental relief. It's no going to the movies, but it's no getting away from basketball. And that's what coaches usually tell you on your day off. And so, I definitely have a high respect for what these guys are going through.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. You were here, you left, and now you're coming back. I'm wondering what that's like in terms of for anybody this experience, just because I'm here to tell you the 7-day quarantine, I'm not joking. It is the weirdest week that I can remember having, just in terms of being stuck in a place that I'm there voluntarily. I'm here knowing that I'm here to do the work, but that being stuck and not even being able to leave your room for a week. And then you get away from this, go home, you're back you with your family, whatever, and then you got to come back to this. Mentally, that will be playing tricks on me, and I'm not even playing.
One of the best things I saw was the picture of Van Vliet when his kids saw him in the basement. So for me, a family guy, it would have absolutely, killed me. I was the longest when I was in the bubble. I've been away for my 3-year-olds, and now they can understand being away. So again, I cannot imagine it, and when it really hit me, when I was getting a little bit of fatigue and seeing others and saying, wow, I'm not even playing. But it hit me after a TNT game, and Jared Greenberg asked Paul George after the game, how's he feeling about his shot? And it was just one of the most honest answers I've seen in sports. And I was proud of him for giving that honest answer, but also really amazed that, wow, okay, it takes a serious nerve to be in this place, extra concentration, and these guys are being professionals.
Yeah, no question about that. We got the Western Conference Finals on TNT's airwaves, obviously. The matchups will be what they are. Everybody that makes it to a Final Four of any competition has to have kind of that inner confidence and that belief in themselves that they're going to be able to get it done. You've been there before. What's that like when you know that it's concentrated down to just these teams? Like, how are they approaching that every, step in the preparation for that?
All I know is really how I've approached it and talked to other players that, we battled against in those kind of Final Four settings in the NBA with. And it's really almost, there is no reward until there's a reward. Mm. So it's messed up that you're one game away and you can't think about what it would be like to get to the championship. Right. You just can't allow yourself. And, if you do, and maybe the Clippers were thinking about, okay, let's get this series. Who knows? But there cannot be any distractions. And that distraction, because most distractions, are wrestling in your mind. And that distraction can't be one of success, definitely can't be one of failure. You got to have blinders on, man. Just like a horse, you can only look forward. And and I think that's what the good teams are doing right now. That's why I give the Lakers the advantage, because I think, I was talking to Juwan Howard about what it was like when, everybody always talks about, and LeBron's not going dark on the internet this year, but, when he goes dark, what does that mean? Oh, he turns into a different person. And he just gave me, different examples of not, anything Superman-ish, but something that's like, I'm not playing around and you better not be playing around either. Whether it's changing demeanor, whether it's attention to detail, whether it's changing routine. I'm sure that LeBron's prepared more than anyone in the setting for that, but there's no one more prepared for this situation of isolation more than him.
Yeah, that's a great point. Guy who's been there so many times in his career. Well, look, we're waiting on you here in the bubble, man. You come on back. We're getting ready to crown a champion, see who can survive this Final Four crucible in the conference finals in the NBA playoffs. Chris Webber, TNT, joining us here on the Hang Time Podcast. Always appreciate your time, man.
Oh, thank you for having me, man. Appreciate you.